Hi, I'm Frank Morano. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. Sitting in for John Tobacco, who will check in with us next. But there is a ton of political news hot off the presses today. And when you're talking about political news, there is no better analyst of what happens in Washington, D.C. than Ronica Cleary. She's the president of Cleary Strategies and a former White House correspondent. Ronica, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Frank. It's good to be here.
And we're also joined by the crypto cowboy for the hour, the one and only Drew Taylor, who will give us some insight into the world of blockchain and cryptocurrency coming up. Ronica, I have to ask you first about Elizabeth Warren. More and more people seem to be predicting her as the Democratic nominee for president, but she's having a tough time about this story regarding whether or not she got fired for being pregnant. For people that haven't followed this story, what exactly is the controversy?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a story that we've heard a lot from her now that she is such a front runner in this race. She says that when she was visibly pregnant, before her second year of teaching, that she was fired or not. I forget exactly how she words it, whether she wasn't asked to come back or she was let go. And now some past video of an interview with Warren has come out where she talks about the fact that she just decided to leave because she didn't have the proper credentials to continue teaching, that she was only hired on an emergency basis. So it's a really unfortunate thing for her campaign, but...
But is she sticking with the story of being...
She is sticking with the story that she was let go for being pregnant. And it's very unfortunate because if what has come out is true, that wasn't the case, all it does is it diminishes the real stories of women who have experienced discrimination for pregnancy. And she could still champion that issue without making something up from her life.
Drew, though, a lot of Elizabeth Warren supporters, they seem almost doggedly loyal, like, as Donald Trump's supporters are, you know? So is this going to phase any of her supporters from what you see?
You know, I think it will. You know, we see this, what I call stolen valor, and we've seen Biden do it. And now there's actually some documentation out showing that Elizabeth had the opportunity to rehire and opted not to. And you know, it shakes people at the base, in my opinion, because when you find that there's inconsistencies and then they begin to pile up, what additionally is
right,
there?
and I mean, this isn't the first time we've had inconsistencies from Elizabeth Warren with her whole, you know, speaking about being of Native American descent, and then, you know, that story has been debunked. The only thing to, I guess, the Democratic voters' advantage in this is that we're still in a primary. They could potentially maybe look to somebody else, but because Warren has the momentum in this moment, I think she will get an advantage in that voters will, not all of them, but a lot of them may overlook it and forgive her for something that is really an unfortunate lie to be told.
Well, one of the other frontrunners in this race is Joe Biden. Very interesting that Biden picked up an endorsement from, of all people, California's senior senator, Dianne Feinstein. Now, one establishment Democrat endorsing another is not exactly breaking news, except when one of their colleagues is running for president as well. Kamala Harris is the junior senator from California. Ronica, are you surprised that Dianne Feinstein wouldn't back her own colleague and she's going with Joe Biden instead?
You know, the only thing frustrating about that story when I sent it over to you as a possible talking point today is the way that it was positioned in the media, right? There was no doubt that Feinstein was going to endorse Joe Biden. She just had a fundraiser for him at her home. But it was the headline was positioned in such a way it said she endorsed Biden over Harris. When that was never going to happen, it's just like a misleading, clickable headline, as if Feinstein was actually considering not endorsing somebody who she has known in the Senate for, you know, decades. So not surprising. I do think the timing, though, is because Joe Biden is getting some backlash because of this Ukraine story, and because we're seeing Warren rise in the polls. They're going to work together to come up with this endorsement at a time when he needs some positive press, because it's not a great time to be Joe Biden.
So let me ask you, even going back to Barack Obama, I think that they kept the old liberal guard in place by having Biden as VP. Obama did. But are we seeing, they were talking earlier about Gabby, and are we seeing kind of a changing of the guard, in your opinion?
I think we are. We'll really have the answer to that, though. It's a good question. We won't know the answer to that until we see who is selected as the VP. So if we see one of these very left, progressive Democrats like Bernie Sanders, who I don't think can win the nomination at this point, or Elizabeth Warren, we've got to see who they bring in as their vice president. They're not going to bring in Joe Biden. I mean,
Yeah.
he's not going to be a vice president.
Why do you say
again.
you don't think Sanders can win the nomination at this point? Because there's too many candidates that have adopted the Sanders position? Is it because of the heart attack? Is it because the enthusiasm has gone more towards Warren? Why do you say that Bernie's out of it?
So Bernie was already losing momentum, right? We saw Warren picking up steam, building momentum to possibly beat it. She's the shiny new version of Bernie Sanders. And then, unfortunately for him, his health situation right now, the heart attack, he's already said he has to slow down on the trail. These are things that would, I think, concern any voter from any party. You know, you want to pick a candidate who can fulfill the job as president. Obviously, we're going to listen to his doctor, and we have only good prayers for Sanders' health.
Absolutely.
But it is not a good thing to happen at this point in the campaign.
Maybe with all these Democratic presidential candidates having difficulty, the thing that the Democratic Party needs is one more presidential candidate. That is precisely what Hillary Clinton teased the world about yesterday. Donald Trump tweeted, "Why don't they get crooked Hillary to run so they're not saddled with an ultra left-wing candidate like Elizabeth Warren?" And then he brought up the 33,000 missing emails, the bleach bit, this and that. Hillary Clinton answered back in a tweet, which she doesn't usually do, saying, "Don't tempt me, do your job." She then does an interview alongside her daughter Chelsea saying she'd love another chance to run against Donald Trump and, in her words, beat him again. Ronica, how much of this is bravado and how much of this is Hillary testing the waters?
I have to say, if there is any element of truth in her statement that she would consider this, the people I feel the most sorry for are the Democratic voters, right? I mean, can they not get away from the Clinton family, from this, the fact that they have been in office and holding positions for so long, and the fact that she has run for president twice, lost, she lost against Obama, then she loses against the president. And ironically, she called President Trump delusional when she was talking about, his comments. I think the only person who's delusional on this is if Hillary Clinton really thinks she's going to run again. That is really insane and also incredibly disrespectful to the pool of 20 Democratic candidates who feel that it is their time to, run and have a place and a voice for that party.
I think it's the millionth rerun of Rocky Horror Picture Show. It is. I mean, here it is all over again.
But Ronica, I got to say, as a Trump supporter, I look at the prospect of Hillary Clinton running for president, and I think that's the greatest thing ever. I mean, Donald Trump was the first candidate since Nixon to be elected president with the majority of the country finding him unlikable. And part of the reason he was able to do that was because an enormous amount of the country finds Hillary Clinton unlikable. Say what you want about Joe Biden. He might be having cognitive difficulty. He might have a poor record. He might be wrong on the issues, but the guy is pretty likable.
Right, but Frank, I challenge you with this. Even if you feel that it is good for the election or good for the president, is that really a good state of affairs for the country that we cannot get any new people to run for office? That was the whole thing that helped President
Bush and
Trump.
Clinton fatigue
right?
at that point.
I mean, Trump was a new person to be a part of this conversation. The Democrats, with Biden in the lead, they haven't done a great job at that, but we do see new faces in that primary. That should be what any party is moving towards, but I hear you in terms of the political strategy of it. Sure, go ahead, run.
You've got to give us your take on impeachment. The White House says they're not going to be cooperating at all. They don't even recognize this as a legitimate impeachment inquiry because there's been no vote. What do you think the political ramifications of this will be?
Well, let me ask you this, rhetorically, if you will. Did any of us not expect the president to be impeached at some point in his first term? Of course we all expected that because the Democrats had decided from the moment that he was in office that they would find a reason to impeach him. They had their criminal. All they needed to do was find their crime. So I am not surprised to hear that the White House is unwilling to cooperate with this impeachment inquiry. I don't know how long that will last. I don't know if eventually they will need to, but I don't think that their thought process is a surprise because of what we had expected.
Drew, let's hope Ronica doesn't get impeached as the head of president of Cleary Strategies because we've got to get her back.
I don't see that happening.
We've got to get you back. Ronica, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Rumor has it John Tabacco is in the building, or if not in the building, at least on the bocce court, and he has now found access to Skype and decided to take a break from his bocce game, and he will be Skyping in next. You're watching Liquid Lunch. The Crypto Cowboy and yours truly, Frank Morano, will continue with you. Take a break from his bocce game, and he will be Skyping in next. You're watching Liquid Lunch. The Crypto Cowboy and yours truly, Frank Morano, will continue with you next on Newsmax.
What's on the menu?
How sweet it is!
Markets,
We tell you what's the real deal.
news,
Conclusions of the report.
politics,
Go for it.
shaken and stirred and served with a twist. During the heart of the day, from the financial capital of the world, Liquid Lunch, live. Great! Liquid Lunch with John Tobacco, weekdays at noon, live.